like to welcome Colleen Dell and Holly McKenzie here today. We're going to be talking about therapy dogs and how they can be used virtually during COVID-19. We'll start off with something simple. So what are the benefits of therapy dogs?
So in order to answer that question, I'm going to talk a little bit about the therapy dog program at the University of Saskatchewan, which is the Paws Your Stress program, and the evaluation that Colleen's office has done. So Dr. Dell's office started the Paws Your Stress therapy dog program on campus in partnership with St. John Ambulance in 2015 because we know that mental health and well-being is a concern for university students, and the emerging research and anecdotal knowledge that showed that human-animal interaction can support well-being. And through the research that the office has done and other researchers have done, we've learned that students say that when they visit the dogs provide them with unconditional love, comfort, and support. And while there isn't as much research about faculty and staff experiences, what we do know, like what is out there, suggests that they experience similar benefits. And we also know that from other research that petting a dog can reduce anxiety, lower blood pressure, and lessen many symptoms of stress. And so what grounds the research we do in this program at the One Health and Wellness Research Office is recognition of the human, non-human animal bond or connection and the reciprocal benefits of this relationship.
That's a great answer. Yeah, thank you so much. So how do you think maybe these benefits can be used towards an online platform, especially during COVID-19?
So in March of last year, when physical distancing measures were put in place in Saskatchewan to reduce the spread of COVID-19, our office obviously recognized that students, staff, and faculty may require mental health support, especially with the challenges of isolation and loneliness. So we wanted to work with the St. John Ambulance therapy dogs and handlers so that they could continue to offer comfort and support to the USask community and the broader Saskatchewan community. So of course, with the online visiting, it is a bit different than in person. And so one of the biggest differences that is just so obvious to people is, right, like you can't pet the dog if you're, visiting online. But some other differences that came up is that handlers in their live sessions, and I've seen this with Carleton live sessions too, when I've tuned into them, is that handlers can do so many different things and showcase the personalities of their dogs in different ways. Like there was someone who took their dog to a groomer and videoed that for a live.
He's back.
How does he want to be showcased right now?
He says groomer time would be good. It's time for a bath. Oh boy, I'll be back. Continue.
Okay, yes. Okay, so somebody else also took their dog, went with their handler to meet with their obedience trainer. Somebody showed off their agility skills. And with our Zoom sessions, we have a few special guests who can regularly visit. A cat waffle with her handler, and Posty, a bearded dragon, who also comes with their handler. And the St. John Ambulance handlers working with Paws Your Stress, like they really rose to the challenge. So they work to do activities that really showcase who they and their dogs are. And I feel like that really fosters that sense of connection. And they share stories about them and help people who are watching to get to know them in a different way. So we thought that the online visits would have some benefit, but we weren't exactly sure what the benefits would be. And we're so happy when we analyzed the results of the survey we did this summer, and that was as part of our combined process outcome evaluation about our live events. Most of the survey participants said they felt comforted by the therapy dogs, connected to the therapy dogs online, loved by the therapy dogs online, and supported visiting the therapy dogs online. So that really mirrors what we found in the in-person evaluations. And while providing the program online is different, these dogs and handlers who really enjoy visiting with students and staff can continue to do that in a different way. And students, staff, and the broader community are really feeling a connection through these visits. So we're continuing this evaluation work this semester, and during the, when we did the process evaluation during the first semester, the person doing the interview spoke with people who participated in the Zoom visits, and they said that they were visiting because they like the dogs or want to connect with the dogs. They want to connect with other people, and they just want to take a break. So again, very similar to what we found when we were evaluating the in-person visits. And so this semester we're doing an outcome evaluation to continue to see like what are these outcomes of the remote online program. And so we use different methods within our office because everything that we do in our office needs to be evidence-based. So we use needs assessments, we use process and outcome evaluations, and our evaluation, we actually have an evaluation specialist who's on our team, Dr. Lindsay Williamson, who's also a postdoc working in the office and supervised by Dr. Colleen Dell. I think I called you Dr. Dell more in this meeting than I have for a really long time.
That's so great. Thank you so much. All right, so we're moving on. How do you think companion dogs have contributed to well-being during COVID-19?
Well, EJ's not here, so he's not going to tell you now. And in case you're wondering, why don't I just let him in? Well, yeah, Annabelle really enjoys her screen time because screen time means Colleen time. So yeah, there'd be a little bit of a tiff if I had let him in with her at a height like this. So that's why GJ didn't come in. But he obviously wanted to have his voice heard there. He's outside now, so I'm sure he'll bark at the door in about 2 minutes. So just see, and very insistently too. So how have companion animals helped us with our well-being during COVID-19? Keep me busy, as you can tell. Keep me lots of comfort and lots of support, like Holly said, even through therapy dogs. We see that in our companion animals. They keep us company and so forth. So we've seen prior to COVID that at the Centers for Disease Control in the US, there are a number of things from their research as well as others they put together. And Holly had said a couple things like lower blood pressure. I forget what you said, Holly, loneliness, decreasing loneliness, all types of things. Dogs get us out to exercise, they get us outside. Improved opportunities for social connection. People meet people on the street, the dog park and that. But I think what has really happened here during COVID-19 is I think people have, this is what I believe, that people have started to see how our companion animals are supports in our lives, where before they were there, but you don't think they were recognized for what they actually provide to us in our lives, and us them. And this is what our research in our office is very much about. So with COVID came, disconnection and isolation. In animals, we connect with, right? And we connect with in a different way than we do humans. So I think that became really evident. And there are theories like biophilia that talks about our innate need to connect with nature as well as animals. So there's lots of different ways you can explain this. But I would just say that, yeah, I think the animals have been there, as for many of us, we consider part of our families. They are very much there, but they just took a front and center seat during the pandemic. And I really hope that that doesn't change as we move along through the pandemic and wherever that takes us. I just really hope that the recognition that they're receiving as helpers and supports in our lives and us and them remain.
Well, what do you think the ramifications are for the dogs?
Okay, so I think that there's like positive and negative impacts for the dogs that we live with. So with the physical distancing measures in place, we may not be able to or feel safe doing activities that would help us understand how to live well together and that would help our dogs have like enriched, balanced lives, like going to classes or taking them to pet stores, or these different things that are just usually part of our socialization and our learning as humans, our learning together as like dogs and humans, right? And so this is showing up as concerns like with separation anxiety and confidence in dogs, right? Like that's one thing. And maybe just like humans who don't quite know what their dog's needs are because maybe they weren't able to go and take that in-person class. Maybe they haven't spent as much time with their vet because our vets are overworked, right? And so that's the kind of like some of the negative impacts of it as well. And I think for a lot of dogs who were looking for homes, they've recently found homes with someone, like, because we've been hearing across North America that the shelters, the rescues are just like having a hard time keeping up with demand. We've heard from like the Canadian Kennel Club and breeders that breeders are having a hard time keeping up with the demand for puppies, right? And so, and there's a lot of reasons for that. I think some people who always wanted to have a dog, but maybe they traveled for work or these different things, all of a sudden had this opportunity where they knew they were going to be home for a while and they could spend that time doing that training and spending that time with those dogs. Maybe they realized that they did want that social connection with a dog when they didn't have a lot of their different avenues for human connection. Um, and yes, okay, so we talked about how the dogs may not be getting out to do as much like socialization or like enrichment activities as they usually do. And we see these with therapy dogs too, right? Therapy dogs are really, I hear from different handlers that their dogs are really missing visiting with people. I see it. I have a very, very social Great Dane who loves to visit with people, and I see it in her as well, that when she sees someone, she's really, really hopeful we're going to visit with them. And so you see that. But also because, like Colleen was talking about, because, we're isolated, we're disconnected from a lot of these different activities and our different avenues for in-person social support, right? I think those relationships with our companion dogs, I think, have really grown. And then I think the other part of that is, I think some people had these idealized view of like what having a dog is. So they went out and adopted a dog, and it might not be working out for them, especially without as many classes in person and those different places where they would get support to help develop that bond and that relationship and that knowledge, right? And so we see this too, and like that, I think it's part of a larger shift we've been seeing in about the last 10 years. Maybe Colleen might know kind of the timing, but just hearing more people talk about their dogs and their cats as the part of their family, right? So I think that it just really accelerated that, where we see more and more people talking about that. But the other side of that is that people are concerned that here in Canada, we're going to see a big increase in the number of dogs surrendered to rescues and shelters when people are working in offices and there's more activities going again. And in the United States, in a few of the states there, we've recently seen an increase in dog surrenders. And I think that there's quite a few things that are going on, right? We know that some people have lost their jobs and are not as financially secure as they were. And I think some people are surrendering their dogs because they actually can't, pay for their basic needs anymore. And then in other situations, people may underestimate the work of living with their dog, and then with the big shift to going back to work and doing more activities outside of the home, that dog might develop behavioral issues such as separation anxiety, because they went from the humans being home all the time to all of a sudden the humans being out 10 hours a day. And that's a big change. And so, and I've heard lots of people talk about this, and like how, one of the things we could be doing for our dogs right now is to just have them in another area of the house for a few hours a day, and that will help with that shift. But again, I think people would be getting that information, that knowledge more if they were able to had more access to lots of different dog spaces and dog classes and different things like that. And there's also research that indicates that dogs take on our level of stress, like that they mirror it. And so if we're feeling more stress right now, they probably are too. So that's not for anyone to feel bad for being stressed, right? But it's just to think, well, for me, it actually helps me take better care of myself, because then I say, oh, I'm feeling really stressed. Well, I should really take a break and maybe go out and spend some time with my dog and chill out a little bit, because I know it'll be good for me and her, right? And it really comes down to recognizing what are the needs of the dogs and learning about, how can I meet this dog's behavioral needs? How can I communicate with this dog? What do we need to know to live well? And kind of figuring that out and trying to be innovative about that. I know we don't have a lot of the same socialization opportunities that we usually do right now, but something I've done with my dog is actually just go outside of like a mall rather than taking her in one, because I don't feel comfortable going into a pet store with a dog right now, because I think we'll get too close to you and stuff because they're just excited to see the dog. So I go and I sit outside of it when it's not -40, because I do live in Saskatchewan. Right. And so trying to be like innovative of these ways of like, how can I still help her meet her needs, even in this time, and like finding that information.
That's a great answer. There's a lot of really good points there, but never even thought about. Yeah, thank you so much. So we're going to start talking about One Health a little bit. Would you be able to explain the concept of One Health for us?
For sure. And sorry I was up and down during your answer there, Holly. So EJ, I gave him a cookie, then he went outside, and then he kind of had the cookie in his throat. But he's okay. He's going to sit down now, so we'll see.
I'm glad
But
that EJ is okay.
EJ's good. But I just think it's just, oh my gosh, it's an example of even just working at home with the dogs, right? When we're out in the community, you, with the therapy dogs, you're always on point. You're always making sure that everything's okay. You're half thinking about the visit, you're half thinking about the welfare of the dog. And then when we do these things online, you know, EJ was sleeping for 2 hours before this, but then he's also training as a service dog through another project. So if I get a little bit heightened, he's there and he barks, right? And and oi. So it's just, yeah, this is where some of this comes from. So yeah, he's doing good, but yeah, it's kind of, I should have probably.
It's good. He was just trying to show us through practice, like how dogs can be, well, right. I was reading that in a journal article. They were talking about how dogs can be a distraction when we're trying to work from home, right? And
Yeah.
so the people were talking about that, and there's that survey. So like Jennifer Applebaum down at University of Florida, so she did some survey work around kind of like COVID-19 and pets, and like how people are experiencing living with their pets during COVID-19, and like what are some of the stressors, what are some of the strengths, and did some COVID-19 specific stuff in there. So that's really interesting work too, if people are interested in learning more about that. But anyways, I just read it yesterday, so it just went in my head.
Absolutely, but it's important to think, because I even said to my partner, I said, you know what? I just need to be away from the dogs for a little bit, because they're always with me. I'm never not home. I don't go anywhere. I'm at home. I do work with them. I do work about them. I train with them. I feed them. I bathe them. It's like constant. And so after a little while, I was like, I just need to go outside by myself, or
Yes.
be in the basement with them, because they're always here. And some are more demanding than others. Okay, all three of them are pretty demanding sometimes. So I think it's a really important point here, and I'll get to One Health, but One Health is very much about that relationship between people, animals, and the environment. So it's a very holistic look at all three together. And I think we just talked a little glimpse into some of that, because Kate Hodgson and Marcia Darling through One Health, they talk about Zueya. And Zueya is that the positive benefits to human health from interacting with animals, and really focusing on the companion animal. And Zueya is the inverse of zoonosis. Zoonosis is a transfer disease from animals to humans, so more of the deficit based. And obviously right now within COVID-19, we are looking at a zoonotic disease more than likely from what we know so far. So basically, if you looked at One Health, it's about animals, humans, and environment, and there is no safe spot unless all three are safe. There is no healthy spot unless all three are healthy, right? So animals, humans, and the environment each have to be healthy. And we know right now, not doing so great on the planetary environment side. And then on the animal side, again, we're encroaching into their territories. There's examples from all over the world of other species coming in and cohabiting areas with humans. And this is where we run into zoonotic disease transmission, one way for sure, and one increasing way. So yeah, One Health is very much about that relationship and understanding that there's a holistic look at animals, humans, and the environment. Again, one cannot be healthy or safe without the other ones being healthy or safe.
All right, well, thank you so much. That's great. Do you think the concept of One Health can be related to therapy dogs?
For sure. And Dr. Darlene Chalmers and I, we wrote about this. And what we did in looking at environment is we looked at environment beyond the ecological environment. So the social, the cultural, the political, the economic. And now I would even say the virtual, right? Holly told you about the virtual therapy dog program. That's another environment or space, right? So we look at One Health and the idea of the environment in different ways than just that ecological environment. And we've done this with, we have a paper coming out as well, looking at Zooea and that concept in One Health applied to service dogs. So some of the service dog work that we do. So yeah, absolutely. The concept of One Health and then that concept of Zooea. Again, Zooea talks about the relationship that, the benefit, again, that companion animals have in our lives. And I'm just going to look at the 4 areas and I'll just give you an example. So again, they talk about the benefit of companion animals in our lives. And you can think about this right now specific to COVID. So number 1, animals can foster building social capital. So this is Hodgson's and Darling's work. So think about this, a companion animal, and now think about therapy dogs even. Reducing loneliness, facilitating social contact, being online, increasing civic engagement. And number 2, they talked about companion animals as a way to reduce harm. We can talk about that with therapy dogs online right now as a form of social support. So as a form of support, offering support, love, and comfort, as Holly said, that can reduce harm when it comes to mental health, right? Also, they talked number 3, motivating healthy behavior change. So increasing physical activity. So yeah, absolutely. I'm out and about more. Again, as Holly said, now that's not -40, right? So that works for therapy dogs too. We're out and about, leaving, coming, wherever we're doing, or even at home. So now that we're doing it online, we're a little bit more structured. And I also had to work with them quite a bit to get used to the computer. So we had, it was healthy behavior there. And then actively participating in treatment plans. And the more important point here, they talked about companion animals that fits maybe even more or the same for therapy dogs, is this perceived, they perceive to be non-judgmental as a support, reducing stress and so forth. So that's all very applicable, One Health, and in particular Zooea, to therapy animals as well.
Something that always stands out for me in terms of like how animal-assisted intervention kind of used to be talked about and is still talked about by some people is like where they really treat the dog as a tool, like for human benefit. Whereas I feel like when you and Darlene's work about applying One Health really focused on like bringing animal welfare into there as well. And so like I think that that's what was always like really attracted me to that framework within therapy dog, like understanding therapy dog.
Absolutely. Now, right, there's the area of one welfare, and then there's positive welfare, right? And I think this just goes back to COVID too, that, we were both saying more now, hopefully individuals are realizing these sentient beings that they have in their lives, right? They're not tools. For many of their family members, or you're cohabitating or what have you. And ideally, we're recognizing that. And I think that's the word you used, Holly, is and just giving it the credit that's due of these animals that we share our lives with. And I'm just going to say, what I've noticed over the last year, and more particular lately, it used to be, if I wanted to bring a dog somewhere to do something or submit an abstract or whatever, or tell someone what I do, it'd be like, What? Why? Yeah, I have a dog. Yeah, okay, you go on doing your thing. And now it's like, I'm writing to you, Colleen, with my dog laying at my feet. And I'm wondering how I can incorporate my understanding about my dog now into my clients' lives. Do you think their animals are important to them? Like it's a complete polar opposite, right? And before I was like, what are you doing? Okay, I don't really get it, but continue on. And now it's just like 100% get it because I know what my dog brings to my life. And then also that reciprocal side, like Holly said, I also understand more. I have more insight in what I give in a caregiving role or whatever you want to call it to that animal in my life as well.
That's great. Thank you so much. Before we end this off, do either of you have any takeaway messages that you'd like to give to the viewers?
So I think my takeaway about companion animals and like, you know, and like the positive and negative impacts on their lives is that that's not meant to scare people away or like freak them out about how they might be affecting their dog, but just to think about it and to be aware of those things so that be aware, okay, they might not be getting as much enrichment in their life, just which is just like by going out for walks in different places and going to pet stores and all these things. So what's another way I can do that for them? You know, like trying to take what we can learn about how this is impacting companion animals and to just work to mitigate some of those stressors, right? Like, so just like trying to get out with our dogs, trying to make sure that we're taking care of ourselves. And like, and that's why I think that One Health right now, it's just like, maybe it's just so obvious because at this point, like our relationship to animals and our relationship to our environment and how that impacts us and how that impacts them, because there's just less noise. There's less of these activities we're doing with like other humans and, you know, going from here to here. And so maybe we can just see it clearer because it's peeled back a little bit. And so, you know, I think it's a really cool time to develop those relationships with our dogs and to like develop really healthy habits together, to just like go into whatever it looks like in 6 months and 12 months with all of those tools in our tool belt.
Mm-hmm. Oh, that's good. I feel like you were very realistic about the matter. It is wonderful to have a dog with you, and there's so many benefits for having an animal, but you have to be realistic about what it takes to own an animal that is sentient.
Right. And I think I'll just kind of add to that one, Holly. I think you said it so well, and it is so important. And for myself, you know, I'll just say getting EJ really, you know, 6 months before the pandemic hit, you know, you have a year and a half kind of to that brain for that training. And that was, you know, there were certain things that we couldn't do because he's a companion animal in my life, but he also does training with me for therapy dog and service dog projects, right? First and foremost, he lives with me as part of our family, but also recognizing that we are limited at this time, and or even emotionally or mentally or physically, right? And it's okay if you didn't do perfect, because I can tell you I haven't. And there are things I should have done that I just wasn't in a headspace to do with him, but I'm catching up now, right? And so I was like, okay, I have a year and a half, and then his brain is developed, and if I don't get this in now, and then I would be hard on myself, and then we would go really hard to train, and then I was tired, and I would have to do my other work, and it was all over the place, right? So being kind to ourselves might be my message. Be very kind to yourself and your relationships with the animals. You bring a puppy on or an older dog or what have you, just be kind to everyone. And I think, yeah, that would be my final thought.
Yeah, of course, during COVID-19, it's really important to take care of yourself and others. And as you said, be kind. It's hard, and you have to let yourself, I can't think of the word I'm going to say.
Maybe it's just be, right? The dog, the main thing, and maybe what we haven't said is the dogs, or you did, Holly, allow us to be present in the moment. And we know that from the therapy dogs, right? they allow us to be present in the moment. And maybe we just need to do that with the animals at this point, as Holly said, with less noise, less movement, and then allow yourself for feeling what you feel. And if that's with the comfort and safety of your dog, that's awesome. It's a really great gift.
That's great. Thank you so much, both of you, for answering all of my questions. It was wonderful, and I appreciate your time.
Great.